Hebrews 11. And this is famously called the faith chapter in Scripture. We're not going to call it that. Okay? Let's see how the New American Standard states this first verse here. We read, now, faithfulness is the assurance hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Now, things is not in the Greek. It's there to help us understand, but the word faith, it is the Greek word pistis. And pistis can mean, it's translated as faith, or faithfulness, according to most any concordance. Now, there are evidences that, well, the word should always be translated as faithfulness, never faith. It's a Greek action word, okay? It's not a passive emotional word. But this is what I like to ask people. Define what faith is by what you've learned, by how you were taught in church. Okay, that's a tough thing to nail down. Okay, it's an emotion that is something less than love, okay, and a little different, and it's an emotional attraction to Jesus, okay? Would that be a fair definition by the way it's normally taught in church? Yeah, an emotional attraction to Jesus. Something less than love, okay? Because even in a spouse, for instance, you tell your spouse, honey, I got faith in you. What's that tell her? It gives her a vote of confidence, okay? She can cook a good dinner. Got faith in you, right? Does that reach the level of love? No, not quite. See, faith is but the Greek word pistis doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean emotion, okay? So much as it does faithfulness. Now, faithfulness, why are you faithful to your spouse? Because of the love and commitment you have to her or him, But when I say her or him, I do mean that's a she to him and a her to him, okay? We don't play these him, and her games, okay? Not in our shul. Nope. Yes. Yeah, I'm not going to repeat that, no. But when a spouse is faithful, is it evident? Absolutely. Yeah. You can see it, can't you? Uh-huh. And you mean more than in just a sexual way. You're faithful in assistance, in the things that you do. You're faithful to your spouse. The things that you remember. Yeah, the little things that you do. They show faithfulness. Okay, that's what this is talking about. And as a matter of fact, if we look at the New King James, it actually is a better translation. See, I think the New American Standard tried too hard, instead of directly translating it, to make it into to make it fit the word faith as they see it. All right? The New King James says, now faithfulness is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Now that is very good. Faithfulness is a gift from Elohim that is the substance of things hoped for. Okay? Our faithfulness is the evidence of things not seen, that the Spirit of the Father is within us. All right? That's what faithfulness is. It's evidence of that. It's a substance of that. See, faithfulness is evidence and it's substance. Now, a Hebrew word translated as faith is almost non-existent. Okay, you don't hardly see the word in the Tanakh. We have one example here in Habakkuk. We talked about it last week too. Habakkuk 2 verse 4. We read, behold, as for the proud one, his soul is not right within him, but the righteous will live by his faithfulness. Okay, and every other time it's not translated as faith. Just this one time that word is translated as faith. And that's because Habakkuk 2:4 is quoted verbatim 3 times in the Brit Hadashah by Paul. And it's still, it means faithfulness. The righteous will live by his faithfulness to the Father. Okay? Look at how it is in Romans 1, verses 16 and 17. Paul wrote, "For I'm not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of Elohim for salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek. For in it the righteousness of Elohim is revealed from faithfulness to faithfulness, as it is written, but the righteous man shall live by faithfulness." So he's saying here in verse 17, in the gospel, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. For in the gospel, the righteousness of Elohim is revealed from that guy to that woman in faithfulness and in faithfulness and in faithfulness. As it is written, the righteous shall live by faithfulness. Okay? That's what he's saying. It's that power of the gospel which is revealed, which is shown through his people. Also in Galatians, and Galatians is a tough book to really get your hand on if you just read it, because we don't understand the circumstances. And the circumstances in Galatians is that Paul had these Pharisees and others, scribes, that were following him wherever he went. And when he went to Galatia, the Pharisees and the scribes there said, "You listen to Paul? We taught him everything he knows. He's got this story about this Messiah thing, and you need to kind of ignore that. If you want to be the people of God, you need to convert to Judaism, okay, and then be obedient to the Torah. And that then will make you part of the people of God." All right, that is what he was facing. That's what was being faced in that book of the writing to the Galatians. And Paul's whole thing is, you're not justified by doing your duty, by doing what's right and wrong. That doesn't justify you. What's the difference between obeying the Torah and living by faithfulness? Okay, nothing is a good answer. Does anybody see that there could be a difference, though? Okay, out of duty, I'm going to do what's right and what's wrong. But out of faithfulness, what does that mean? That's out of love. It's out of love and desire, right? It's not just a thing of duty, and that's what he was talking about here in Galatians 3:11. Now that no one is justified by the Torah before Elohim is evident, which it is true. We're not justified by the Torah. For the righteous man shall live by faithfulness. Why is the faithful man obedient to the Torah? Because he loves the Father and loves his ways. That's the difference. Okay? That's the difference. And why do you love the Father and his ways? Because that's the gift from the Father. That's the only reason. All right? And where does that gift come from? It's from the blood of Messiah. And he sent the helper. Well, now what about those who reject Messiah? They don't have that. They don't have that. Okay? So they're not living by faithfulness. They're living out of the sense of duty to be obedient to the Torah. All right? That's the difference. That's the difference. That's what Paul's talking about. No, the righteous man lives by faithfulness. Not just a sense of duty to the Torah. And in last week, Hebrews 10, verse 38, "But my righteous one shall live by faithfulness, and if he shrinks back, my soul has no pleasure in him." And so once again, it's just quoting that passage in Habakkuk 2:4. But because he quoted it 3 times in his letters, they had to translate this faith in Habakkuk 2:4. All right? Although the word emunah does not mean faith. It means faithfulness, faithfully, responsibility, stability. Okay, that's what it means. It is definitely a Hebrew action word. And as a matter of fact, that Greek word pistis, which we looked at here, when it's talking about, when there are a couple of instances where it talks about Elohim is faithful to his people. Okay? And Elohim displays his faithfulness. They actually translate pistis when it talks about Elohim and his faithfulness to us, to his people. They translated as faithfulness. Because it wouldn't make sense to think, well, Elohim has faith in his people, right? Well, no. He doesn't have faith in us. All right? Yeah. Yeah, we're not that good. It's really what it boils down to. He is the one.
It's translated as belief, so I don't know if that would be different.
Belief is kind of the same thing as faith.
Yeah, but it didn't say that.
Yeah, what translation is that?
Scripture.
Oh, that's the Scriptures? It should be faithfulness. Yeah.
So from the Jews.
Well, right, it's a separation. Put it that way. Instead of alienation, it's a separation. Yeah, Donna.
It's a word used there.
Right, and that's similar too. I would say that's probably better than faith.
Yeah.
Faith is a little more misty,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
It's a little more concrete. Faithfulness, though, brings the love into it, and it also brings the reason it should always be faithfulness too is remember our relationship with our Heavenly Father. He relates to us in ways with our dearest relationships that we have in this life. He relates as a father to his children, to us. Okay? He also relates as a husband to his bride, which we are. And that's where the faithfulness comes in. Okay? And he's related to us in the ways that we can best know him. That we can experientially know him through the ways we know our other people in our lives. Well, keeping in mind, the Greek word pistis, it's an outward work. It's an outward work out of love. It's not just an inward feeling. It is the outward work which is the substance of things hoped for, which is salvation. Let me go back to the substance of things hoped for, which is salvation, and the evidence of things unseen, which is the breath of the Father, the Spirit of the Father within us. To be obedient to the Father out of faithfulness is an expression of love, not just an action performed out of duty. Yeah.
Faith,
It carries no responsibility whatsoever. Is it really anything more than a vote of confidence? Isn't that what faith is, a vote of confidence?
Yeah.
Are you, okay, so are we saved by a vote of giving, saying, hey, God, I got a vote of confidence in you? What? Yeah, whether you do it or not, it's another thing. But it's a vote of confidence, is what it is.
Let me think about it.
Yeah, faithfulness is really a demonstration of love, is what it is. Okay? That's what it is. It's demonstrating love. All right? Okay, verse 2. For by it, being faithfulness, the men of old gained approval. Well, that's a reference to those in the Tanakh whose faithfulness was evidenced in their works and what they did. Abraham. Exactly. It was with their works of faithfulness that they gained approval. They demonstrated the love for the Father, is what they did in their lives. And he's going to go through these. By faithfulness, we understand that the worlds were prepared by the word of Elohim, so that what is seen was not made out of things which are visible. Okay, let me change here. Faithfulness, for one thing, I didn't change it on that one, I should have. But that word for worlds is not good. Aeon is what the Greek word is. It's better translated as ages. Okay? Now, by faithfulness, we understand that the ages were prepared by the word of Elohim. And what he's saying is, we're going to go down through the ages here. We're going to talk about Noah. We're going to talk about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We're going to talk about Moses. And we're going to talk about these people, and David and others. We're going to go through the ages. And by faithfulness, we understand that the ages were prepared by the word of the Father. So that what is seen is not made out of things which are visible. Well, what is seen was made by the word of the Father. He spoke everything into existence. Look at verse 3. Oh, yeah, that's it. I did see verse 3. I just substituted ages on that one. Verse 4. By faithfulness, Abel offered to Elohim a better or more excellent sacrifice than Cain, through which he obtained the testimony that he was righteous. Elohim testifying about his gifts, and through faithfulness, though he is dead, he still speaks. Now, in this particular instance that he's talking about here, Abel's sacrifice was more excellent than Cain's. And Does anybody remember why? There's a reason for this. A lot of people speculate. You don't have to speculate. It's in black and white what the deal was on that. People say, well, Cain's heart wasn't in it. No. Once again, we've got to go to these emotional things, right? This is a sin offering, and it's obvious by the way it's described, and we're not going to go there and look, but it was a sin offering, okay? And it was offered there where Elohim said for them guys to offer it. And the sin offering requires livestock, okay? Now, if you were of lower means, you could do less. And if you were really poor, you could do turtle doves. But if you were dirt poor, you could give grain. Okay, so what's Cain doing? Well, I don't really have much. See, he's just showing disdain for the Father. That's what he was doing. That's what he was doing. He's saying, I'm going to give the least. I'm going to give the poor offering here. Now, how poor do you think he was? He had a lot of world out there. He had a lot of world out there. It would have been real easy to purchase one of them cattle from Abel. Wouldn't have cost him that much, but he wasn't willing to do it. Okay? He wasn't willing to do it. So he wanted to do things his way. He wanted to come to the Father his way. You don't do that. Now, it was only through faithfulness that Abel had this desire to obey Elohim through this offering. And his sacrifice was witness that he was righteous. He was acting in righteousness. He was obedient to Yahweh even unto death. And his conviction and obedience still speak to us. Remember what Elohim said about to Cain? Your brother's blood is crying out from the ground. He was a righteous man. You killed him. Verses 5 and 6. By faithfulness Enoch was taken up so that he should not see death. And he was not found because Elohim took him up. For he obtained the witness before his being taken up. He was pleasing to Elohim. And without faithfulness it is impossible to please him. For he who comes to Elohim must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who seek him. You know, before Enoch was taken, he had this testimony that he pleased Elohim. Now, how did he do that? How did he please Elohim? He was righteous. He was obedient. You know, now, the Book of Enoch, which I don't recommend, but there may be bits and pieces of it which are correct. The reason you can't trust the Book of Enoch is that it was what we have right now as the Book of Enoch is not what was written back in the day. Okay, what we have now was a putting together of two Ethiopian manuscripts from the 14th to 15th century that were found. Don't build a lot of stuff on that. But the Book of Enoch does say that Enoch received the Torah of Elohim from angels and that he preached righteousness. Why did he receive the Torah and why did he preach righteousness? It's because he was faithful to Elohim and he loved him. That's why. It's impossible to please him without seeking him. And he's talking about that he's a rewarder of those who seek him. And we have several examples in Scripture of this. Asa and Hezekiah sought Elohim and followed his Torah in obedience. In 2 Chronicles 14, verses 2 through 4, and Asa did good and right in the sight of Yahweh his Elohim. For he removed the foreign altars in high places, tore down the sacred pillars, cut down the Asherim, and commanded Judah to seek Yahweh Elohim of their fathers and to observe the Torah and the commandment. That's how you seek him, is be obedient to his Torah and commandment. 2 Chronicles 31, verses 20 and 21, and thus Hezekiah did throughout all Judah, and he did what was good, right, and true before Yahweh his Elohim. In every work which he began in the service of the house of Elohim, in Torah and in commandment, seeking his Elohim, he did with all his heart and prospered. Now the Psalms tell us that without conviction, there are none who seek him and none who do good. In Psalm 14, starting at verse 1, the fool has said in his heart, there is no Elohim. They're corrupt They've committed abominable deeds. There is no one who does good. Yahweh has looked down from heaven upon the sons of men to see if there are any who understand, who seek after Elohim. They've all turned aside. Together they become corrupt. There's no one who does good, not even one. You see, outside the spirit or breath of the Father, we don't have that love and desire to be obedient to Him. Okay? There have been people that do it out of tradition, okay, out of sense of duty. But when you do it out of love, that's entirely different. That's entirely different. Isaiah says, if we seek Him daily, we delight in His ways. Isaiah 58, verses 1 and 2, and this is actually a rebuke of Israel. But we read, cry loudly, do not hold back. Raise your voice like a trumpet and declare to my people their transgression and to the house of Jacob their sins. Yet they seek me day by day and delight to know my ways as a nation that has done righteousness and has not forsaken the ordinance of their Elohim. They ask me for just decisions. They delight in the nearness of Elohim. So, and he's being sarcastic here. He's saying they seek me day by day and delight to know my ways as a nation that's done righteousness. As if they were. They want the show to go on. Okay? But that's all they want. They love the nearness of Elohim. And they love the parties. They love the Sabbath day, although they break it. But they're not doing it. And that's why it says, declare to my people their transgressions. And scriptures abound in these examples of people who seek the Father and who are obedient to Him. In verse 7 of Hebrews 11, by faithfulness Noah, being warned by Elohim about things not yet seen, but they had never seen rain, in reverence prepared an ark for the salvation of his household, by which he condemned the world and became an heir of the righteousness which is according to faithfulness. It's through Noah's faithfulness that he feared Elohim and obeyed Him. Now, if you'd never seen rain before and you were told to build a big boat, okay, and take 150 years to do it, that's a faithful guy, okay? He really displayed his faithfulness. He became the heir of righteousness with the seed of promise passing through him and through his faithfulness to His word. Verses 8 through 10, by faith, Abraham, I'll put fullness in the wrong place. By faithfulness, Abraham, when he was called, obeyed by going out to a place which he was to receive for an inheritance, and he went out not knowing where he was going. By faithfulness, he lived as an alien in the land of promise, as in a foreign land, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, fellow heirs of the same promise. For he was looking for the city which has foundations, whose architect and builder is Elohim. By faithfulness, Abraham was obedient to Elohim to leave his home. And he was asked to leave his home and go to a faraway land. And he was told he would receive that as an inheritance and his descendants after him. He was obedient to dwell in a foreign country. He was convicted and convinced that the city of Elohim was coming. Verses 11 and 12. By faithfulness, even Sarah herself perceived ability to conceive, even beyond the proper time of life, since she considered him faithful who had promised. Therefore also there was born of one man, and him as good as dead at that, as many descendants as the stars of heaven in number, and innumerable as the sand which is by the seashore. You know, Sarah may not have understood Elohim's plan, but she was confident that she would have an offspring with Abraham, even though he was as good as dead, 100 years old, and she was 90. Verses 13 and 14. All these died in faithfulness, without receiving the promises, but having seen them and having welcomed them from a distance. What promises did they not receive? The land. Yeah. And to see their descendants that were as numerous as the sands of the seashore and the stars of the sky. They didn't get to see that. And having welcomed them from a distance and having confessed that they were strangers and exiles on the earth. For those who say such things make it clear they are seeking a country of their own. They confess that. Why would they consider themselves strangers and exiles on the earth? They live by a different law. Yeah, they live by different rules. That's why. An entirely different. If you go to a different land and you want to live by rules that aren't the law of that land, you're a stranger. You're from out of town. Okay, and that's how they considered themselves. strangers and exiles. Paul tells us the same thing. We hope for things we do not yet see, and we are to do it with perseverance. In Romans 8, starting at verse 23, Paul writes, and not only this, but also we ourselves, having the first fruits of the Spirit. What's he mean by that? Having the first fruits of the breath of the Father. That first fruits is him putting his breath within you and giving you a desire to be obedient to his Torah. Even we ourselves groan within ourselves, waiting eagerly for our adoption as sons, the redemption of our body. For in hope we've been saved, but hope that is seen is not hope. For why does one also hope for what he sees? But if we hope for what we do not see, with perseverance we wait eagerly for it. That's what Paul says we're to do. Wait for it's the redemption of our bodies. My body's not getting more redeemed. It's getting more cursed. I'm ready for that to end. I'm ready for it to reverse now. Let's get this redemption business going, okay? Verses 15 and 16. And if indeed they had been thinking of that country from which they went out, they would have had opportunity to return. But as it is, they desire a better country, that is a heavenly one. Therefore Elohim is not ashamed to be called their Elohim, for he has prepared a city for them. All of his people throughout time were and are seeking the kingdom where Elohim reigns. That's what we're looking for. That's what we're looking forward to. That's our hope. Think expectation. That's our expectation, because that's what he said. Verse 17. By faithfulness, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac, and he who had received the promises was offering up his only begotten son. It was he to whom it was said, in Isaac your descendant shall be called. He considered that Elohim is able to raise men even from the dead, from which he also received him back as a type. Now, Abraham, he offered up Isaac, he was his only begotten son, through his conviction that Elohim is who he is. Okay, that's why he offered him up. He demonstrated faithfulness. He knew that Elohim would raise him from the dead if he killed him, which he told him to do. He knew this, by the way. Why would he know that? Why would he know that Elohim would raise him from the dead if he needed to? He's promising that what if we're going to say we're going to have more kids? Well, keep in mind, where did Isaac come from already? He came from the dead. Okay, and he just mentioned that a few verses earlier, being 100 years old. Verse 20, by faithfulness Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau, even regarding things to come. It was through faithfulness that Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau. Now, Isaac was convinced that the prophecy that he gave his sons through Elohim was true. Verse 21, by faithfulness Jacob, as he was dying, blessed each of the sons of Joseph and worshipped leaning on top of his staff. The blessings Isaac and Jacob gave their sons was a promise of the fulfillment of the blessing of Elohim through Abraham, because that's where it all came from. It's the blessing that came from Elohim through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. In case you haven't noticed, we can't think too much of that. Okay, that covenant, that promise he made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that is the foundation and footing for why you're chosen. Verse 22, by faithfulness, Joseph, when he was dying, made mention of the exodus of the sons of Israel and gave orders concerning his bones. Now, Joseph was convinced of the promise of the future blessings of the land. He wanted his bones taken there. Moses did that. In Exodus 13, verse 19, and Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had made the sons of Israel solemnly swear, saying, Elohim shall surely take care of you, and you shall carry my bones from here with you. So that promise, 400 years later, happened. That's a big deal. Verse 23, by faithfulness, Moses, when he was born, was hidden for 3 months by his parents because they saw he was a beautiful child, and they were not afraid of the king's edict. By faithfulness, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to endure ill treatment with the people of Elohim than to enjoy the passing pleasures of sin. The parents of Moses displayed faithfulness in Elohim and were obedient to Elohim rather than the Pharaoh. Through his conviction, Moses would suffer affliction with Elohim's people rather than enjoy the pleasures of lawlessness for a season. Verse 26. Considering the reproach of Messiah greater riches than the treasures of Egypt, for he was looking to the reward. By faithfulness he left Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is unseen. By faithfulness he kept the Passover and the sprinkling of the blood, so that he who destroyed the firstborn might not touch them. Well, it was through faithfulness that Moses looked forward to the coming of Messiah rather than the riches of Egypt. Moses also knew of the coming Messiah. Through his faithfulness, he obediently kept the Passover and the sprinkling of his blood. You think Moses was clueless as to what all those things meant? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. Verse 29, by faithfulness they passed through the Red Sea as though they were passing through dry land, and the Egyptians, when they attempted it, were drowned. By faithfulness the walls of Jericho fell down after they had been encircled for 7 days. By faithfulness Rahab the harlot did not perish, along with those who were disobedient, after she had welcomed the spies in peace. Israel passed through the Red Sea by their faithfulness that Elohim would save them. And it was their actions of faithfulness that Israel could bring down the walls of Jericho with the noise of trumpets. Really? He said, march around the city 7 times, one time for 7 days, and on the 7th day, march around it 7 times and blow your horns. Do you think that'd bring those walls down? They believed it would. And by faithfulness, they did what he said. It was by her faithfulness that Rahab the harlot risked her life to save the spies. And she did. She risked her life. That was a great act of faithfulness. And then I've heard some scoffers say, well, Rahab lied, therefore she sinned. She didn't. Lying isn't necessarily a sin. Okay? If it's for your own, if it's for your benefit or benefit of someone else, then lying is a sin. But just lying is not a sin. Okay? Just in and of itself. She was protecting others, right. What about those that hid Anne Frank and others and that helped the Jews escape? Those stinking liars, weren't they? They were awful liars, weren't they? Yeah, they were heroes because of it. And risked their lives, just like Rahab did. Verse 32, what more shall I say? For time will fail me if I tell of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, of David and Samuel and the prophets, who by faithfulness conquered kingdoms, performed acts of righteousness, obtained promises, shut the mouths of lions, quenched the power of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, from weakness were made strong, became mighty in war, put foreign armies to flight. Women received back their dead by resurrection, and others were tortured, not accepting their release in order that they might obtain a better resurrection. And others experienced mockings and scourgings, yes, also chains and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were sawn in two. They were tempted, they were put to death with the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goatskins, being destitute, afflicted, ill-treated. Who was sawn in two? Isaiah. Yeah, and that's what tradition says, okay? That's what tradition says. Isaiah is the one that was apparently sawn in two. Verse 38, men of whom the world was not worthy, wandering in deserts and mountains and caves and holes in the ground. And all these, having gained approval through their faithfulness, did not receive what was promised. Because Elohim had provided something better for us, so that apart from us, they should not be made perfect. The world was not worthy of these great men and women of Elohim. They obtained a good testimony through their faithfulness to the Father. Elohim has also provided something better for us. They won't be resurrected apart from us, but they're going to be resurrected with us. For that, our faithfulness should be just like theirs and evident in daily life. Because we're looking forward to that promise that they were given, that they were faithful to. We need to be faithful to it also.